Hey, how's it going? Reece here. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about how to manage stress and avoiding burnout as an SMMA owner. I've been in this space for over 3 years now, even longer than that, like nearly 6 years, and I've learned a lot about how to manage your state, especially if you're a new entrepreneur. This is going to be very, very vital video to watch. If you don't already know who I am, my name is Reece. After growing my own agency past multiple six figures, I launched Agency Surge, where it's our mission to simplify and streamline the agency growth process by providing the necessary tools, systems, and support to make agency growth easy and efficient. Without further ado, let me go ahead and get into this video because it's such an important topic to talk about. And really quickly, you've searched for this video, so you clearly know a little bit about stress or burnout, what that is. But I want to give you a little background to what it was for me. And burnout can hit you in many, many different ways. For me, I didn't quite realize what it was at the time, but I had gone through about a year or two of zero results for the agency. And I was putting in the work. At least I thought I was working on the right things. Mostly back then I was just kind of learning about different things and then kind of implementing, but not as much as I should have. That's a topic for a different video. But the idea and the fact here is that I was working in some way or another for like 2 years without seeing any results. And when you are able to just work without seeing results, it's a great skill. It's a great character trait of an entrepreneur. But there becomes a little issue in that, which is that if you're not seeing results and you're not getting a positive feedback loop, meaning you're not seeing any results, you're going to start feeling quite down about it. And this is okay. You can put up with it for 3 months, 6 months, etc. But you're going to hit a time where you're just going to start feeling a strong sense of burnout or just a lot of stress. And they can come in different formats. But this burnout really hit me. I would say that my emotions were pretty depressed for a period of a few months. And to be totally transparent with you guys, I didn't want to work in my agency. I didn't want to even get out of bed some days. I was really just down. It really was not a nice place to be in. Thankfully, I haven't felt that way in a few years. Sure, I've had like little, stress is something that pops up here and there. I'm going to talk about that in today as well. But burnout is the most difficult one to deal with in the terms of it's most difficult to experience, in my opinion. Stress is something that, quite frankly, and I'm going to give you exercises today, but quite frankly, it's something that you're just going to have to learn to accept it. Sure, there are ways to deal with it to minimize that stress, but it's more about a thing that you experience it for the first few months, maybe a couple years or so. But once you get things moving in terms of the agency, the stress level doesn't necessarily decrease, but you become more used to it. And when you're more used to the stress, you feel it less because you're used to kind of feeling it. It's just like kind of going to the gym, right? Where for the first few months or so, you start working out for the first time and your body gets tired really, really quickly. But then with time, the body gets tired less, or you feel it less. The next day when you've got the aches in your muscle, that happens less, right? That's the general understanding. It's the general idea here. So I want to, in this video, as I said, really talk about the core ways that you can really deal with this, both managing the stress you're feeling on a daily basis, but most importantly, dealing with that burnout, which may or may not come around. Okay, and once you're able to find the ways to deal with the stress, deal with the burnout, naturally it's going to allow you to make more progress because you're going to be able to actually deal with any quote unquote negative side effects that you may be facing from focusing and actually doing the work. So firstly, really quickly, I just want to identify what I've seen as the most common stresses for agency owners. Number one would be client management and expectations, where they've just managed the expectations incorrectly with their client, and then the client expects too much from them. This happens sometimes if the agency owner overpromises and says, hey, we're going to do this for you, but then ends up only doing like 2 things or only really helping them with 2 things. So they just set the wrong expectation. So the first thing there is, it's kind of simple. Just set the right expectations. Don't set the wrong expectation. But also sometimes you need to have a tough conversation with the client and say, hey, I know that you need help with this, blah, blah, blah. But this is out of our scope. This isn't something, or this is out of our scope or our area of expertise. And for that reason, it's something we can help you with. If it is something that you can help them with, but it's the case that they're just being too, like, they're micromanaging, from my experience, that tends to only really happens when you're working with a client who's underqualified to work with you, put it like that. Clients that are brand new, that they've just started their business, and they're keeping a closer eye on what you're doing because they're keeping a closer eye on their finances, their money, and if they're paying you, or if they're paying ad spend or something along those lines, then they want to make sure that you're on top of it and they're on top of you in terms of micromanagement. So that's the first thing. It's firstly taking on the right clients, but then when you've got the right clients, having those tough conversations with them and saying, hey, you gotta kind of let us just get on with the work that we got to do. And I know that you want to be involved, and that's great, but let us just follow the system that we've got in place. And then, if you want to give us some feedback or something, save those for the check-in calls. And when we're on the check-in calls, you can share any issues, any hesitations, or anything that you're experiencing. That's the type of thing that you'd want to say for the client. So I would say that client management is the number one stressor that most agencies face, something to do with working with the clients. The second thing, especially for higher level agency owners, it might be the team, management of the team. And really, what I mean by that is you've got the team doing different things and you're not seeing the results that you expect, whether that's a client acquisition thing or a fulfillment thing. And generally what you'll notice here is when the team isn't kind of working on par to your expectations where it should be, the truth is, honestly, it's usually down to your responsibility and is your guidance, your leadership. For example, with myself, I've had times where I'm going to give a particular scenario. An appointment setter for one of my businesses, he will go out and do the appointment setting. And what I realized at one point is that he wasn't sending enough follow-ups. So he was doing the new conversations and he was doing the follow-ups, but he wasn't sending enough follow-ups for us to book the calls that we should make. So what I was doing initially is I was just looking at, I look at the system as a whole and I say, okay, he's not booking the amount of calls that he should be booking. The step before that is he's not offering enough calls, so he needs to offer more calls. But then when I went deeper, I found out that the issue isn't just that he's not offering enough calls, but the actual core issue is that he's not following up with enough people. The more follow-ups you have, the more the conversation is going to move down the pipeline, get warmer, and get to a point where they can get on a call. So the issue wasn't so much that he's not offering enough calls and therefore not booking enough calls. The issue is actually before that, it's the follow-ups. And when I came to acknowledge that, I realized, okay, the issue here isn't what I think it is, it's something else. And then from there, the reason that the results are not as good as they should be is not entirely down to the booking of the calls, but it's down to just not having enough follow-ups, not optimizing his time effectively, not doing the amount of follow-ups he should be doing on a daily basis. And the reason that I bring this up is because it comes down to the team management and something that's within your control. So naturally, one of the ways that you can reduce the stress with the agency as a whole is just mapping out the systems that you've got in place and then assigning a value to the performance of those systems. And what I mean by that is you want to take a really, really thorough understanding and look at your business and see what is working out as it should be and what's not working out. When I say it's not working out, I mean the KPI is off. You've got metrics and they're off KPI, which means key performance indicator, and they're off, which means that then it's not performing the way that it should be. If you were doing cold email and you have got less than, say, a 80% open rate, then the open rate's lower, we need to get that up to 85-90% plus higher, and then you can go and work on doing that. But if you don't know the metrics and you don't know the KPIs you should be aiming for, you don't know what's going wrong. And the idea, when you can see it from a system view, you're able to take the outlook where it's kind of, you're focused on improving the metrics as opposed to just, oh no, something's going wrong, what do I do? It's clear focus. I can see that this metric is off, which is why we're not getting the results we expect. And then you just, in calm, in peace and serenity, can work on fixing that metric. Hope that makes sense. The third most common stressor that I see is a lack of results. And this could be a lack of results in terms of your own acquisition of getting new clients. It could also be a lack of results when it comes to your fulfillment, actually providing the result to people. And this one's a little bit more difficult for me to give generalized advice when it comes to YouTube because everybody's doing different things. They've got different offers, different niches, different forms of outreach, different forms of fulfillment, and different ways that they're handling all of those all together. So a little bit more challenging to give generalized advice. For the outreach, go back to what I said before about having the systems and making sure that the systems are effective. And if your metrics are off and they're not hitting KPI, then your job becomes actually putting those to KPI, changing the metrics, changing what's necessary to get to the point where your outreach is working effectively. If this isn't something, if you're pulling out your hair because you're not too sure how to do this yourself, then it might be worthy of seeking advice, seeking outside guidance to help you out with your outreach. Now, for your fulfillment, you also want to make sure that you got a fulfillment system in place, such in a way that if somebody on the sales call says to you, hey, let's do it, I love what you're offering, then you could go get them onboarding really, really swiftly, get their ads up or whatever it is that you do, get that fulfillment across as soon as possible and as efficiently as possible. And then obviously you want to try and automate that process as quickly as possible. And the reason for that is because you want to bring the experts in. You want to bring in the people that already know what they're doing so you can focus on looking at the agency system as a whole and working out what you need to focus on. Instead of you being like, oh, what do I do today? And just being like a headless chicken, just kind of running around, not knowing what to do, not knowing what to spend your time on. If you've got these different systems in place, then you're able to see what's going wrong for a very high level and make the executive decisions that you need to make to get to the metrics and get to the KPI that you need to get to. It all comes back down to the systems that you've got in your agency, how you're managing the outreach and how you're managing the fulfillment. As for a couple little practical stress management techniques that I feel like I really need to share today. The first one is just making sure that you're planning your goals and your objectives efficiently. You know what you want, and then you're just kind of planning out what schedule you need to hit those goals. If you see your outreach is underperforming and that you need to increase the open rate, to increase the meeting book rate, then firstly it's being aware of where your system is right now, being aware of what you need to focus on, and then focusing on that one thing until it comes right. What most people do is they get really stressed because they're like, I'm not making any money right now, I'm not signing clients, and then they're like, they don't know what to do. But if you just boil this down to the system level, the high level view, it becomes very, very clear what you're missing and what you need to work on. And as I said before, you just need to work on improving that. The way that would look is at the beginning of the month, you will set the revenue target for that month or the amount of clients that you want to have, break that down into how many calls you want to book, and then have a look at your system and see if it's currently performing in a way that's going to be able to hit that KPI, that metric that you've got in mind. If it's not and you need to make tweaks, then you obviously make the tweaks in accordance to how the system is performing and where the system is at that current time, okay? I keep repeating the word system. It's very, very important that you've got these systems in place because it's going to give you a lot of clarity. It's going to allow you to know what you need to work on, when you need to work on it to get to the results and the goals that you wish to hit. Very, very important to know what the system looks like for the agency as a whole. And then once you know what you need to work on, it really just comes down to a matter of prioritization, where you know what metric needs to be improved, so you focus on improving that metric with clear focus just on that, and kind of forgetting everything else because it's not a priority right now. You focus on the things that are a priority, whether that's booking more calls, improving the results, or whatever that may be. And obviously if it comes to improving results and you've got a media buyer or another fulfillment contractor that's underperforming, then you know that you can either try and give them the additional training that they need to improve their results, or potentially it's the case where you need to give them an ultimatum and say, hey, we need to hit these KPIs for this client. If you're unable to hit these KPIs, unfortunately, we're going to have to find somebody else to fulfill the role. And then you can go over and you can hire another contractor, another fulfillment contractor who could perform better. All right. I also just really want to touch on this work-life balance, which is a phrase that I hate because I don't really believe in it. The reason I don't believe in it is when you create a business, you're kind of throwing the key away to a work-life balance. What I mean by that is when you've got a 9 to 5, it's perfectly fine to accept that, hey, I've got to wake up at 6 a.m. in the morning and I've got to be working from 9 to 5 at a job. Then I've got to travel an hour or two to get back to my home. Knowing that and being okay with that is a little bit easier when you're working 9 to 5. When you're owning the business, it's very, very different. You own the business. The business is under your responsibility. Even your contractor or your employees or whatever your team looks like, or if you're doing it yourself, that's all under your responsibility. It's your business. You're the face of it. It's your responsibility. So what I mean by this is you've got to realize that you are taking on a bit of stress. You are taking on this open door to receiving that stress, but the fact that you get to do it, you get to have this stress. It's not a thing that you have to do, you have to deal with. It's just really changing your mindset and the way that you see the stress. Where, sure, I feel a little bit stressed right now. But on the bright side, I don't have to wake up every day to go to a 9 to 5, to work for somebody that I hate and that I don't want to work with, doing something that you don't want to do in that work environment, being around people that you don't want to be around, making the money that you don't want to be making. You get to have the stress, you get to experience the burnout because it's your responsibility. And when you have that responsibility and the responsibility stacks, that's generally where you're going to experience this burnout, or you're going to experience the stress. So instead of a work-life balance, understand that that's not really going to happen when it comes to, owning a business. But make sure that you have really, really set guidelines. You have a start time where you're going to start in the morning, or a start window, and then you have an end time or an end window where you're going to end your work day. And you've got to make sure that you stick to that. You've got to make sure that if you've got relationships, friends, romantic relationships, whatever that is, or whatever your hobbies are, you've got to make sure that you keep doing those things even when running the agency. For my first few years, I didn't really have any hobbies. I kind of just worked. Sure, I went out, restaurants, partying, sometimes with my friends, but for the most part, I didn't really have any hobbies. I threw away the Xbox, not literally, but in the terms of I wouldn't go on it. I saw friends a lot less. I had a relationship which I had to maintain, but you gotta find a balance sometimes. But the most important thing that I'm saying here is that yes, you are going to have to make sacrifices for the business. Just make sure that if you've got hobbies, you've got friends or relationships, families that you want to see and you want to maintain, make sure that you do that because it's super, super important. And you got to make sure that you've got that social side going on, because if you don't have that social side going on, it's going to be really difficult for you to just sit down and do the work that you've got to do, knowing that that's your life. You've got to have other things going on. And yes, love the business, love the work that you're doing, but also have a social life that you're happy to have hobbies, pick up things that you enjoy, that you're passionate about. Last year, towards the end of the year, I picked up MMA, Muay Thai, and by doing that, it allowed me to know that no matter how my days went, whether they were good or bad, whether I had a 5K day with the business, whether I signed a few clients, or if we had a terrible day with the business, I had to fire somebody, lost a client, whatever that would look like, I would know that, hey, at the end of the day, I'm going to go and I'm going to punch this punching bag and just be there for an hour or two. And there was a really nice, tranquil peacefulness that comes from that, knowing that you've got hobbies that you can go and you're going to stick to nonetheless. Whatever happens, it's a commitment and you're going to stick to that. And that's really, really nice. And I would highly, highly encourage it. The last thing is just network with other business owners. A lot of people, if they're starting, especially if they're starting an agency where it's the first time business, they don't have friends that are involved in business. And when you don't have friends that are involved in business, it's really difficult for the friends that you do have to understand if you're not going to be around a little bit because you're working, or sometimes the response time on WhatsApp might be a little bit long, or mostly just sometimes you need somebody to talk to. So make sure that you create or join a community, an online community of agency owners if you can get access to that. Not necessarily saying that you have to join a mastermind or a mentorship, although I personally think they're a good idea. That bit is up to you, but just make sure that you do find an online community of people that are doing something similar to what you're doing. Engage with those, make those people, make friends with them, and be open in sharing that, hey, if you're having a tough week, it's okay knowing that you can pick up your phone, you can call a friend of yours, you can talk that through, a friend or a mentor, you can call them, talk them through the problems that you're facing, and then from there kind of get an idea of what you should be doing on the next steps. So in general, for this video, if I were to summarize it, I would just say, just keep things simple. Systemize, create systems in the business, keep to those systems, create systems in your personal life and stick to those as well. And make sure that you've got a time where you're going to say, hey, enough is enough today. I've worked enough hours. I'm going to go take a break now and do something else, whether that's a hobby, spending time with a friend, family, whatever that may look like. So I hope this video has been valuable. Really just wanted to kind of go over this stress and the burnout, because it's something that we're pretty much all going to face at least one time or another. So That's pretty much all I wanted to speak about today. But if agency growth is something that is a problem right now in your agency where you're looking to grow further, and you're looking to solve that problem, then click the first link in the description below, where there's a video explaining a little more about what it is that we do at Agency Surge and how we help agencies book a consistent flow of sales calls while automating their fulfillment and processes. It's entirely up to you whether or not you watch the video in the link down below, but if acquisition or automation and systems is a problem for you right now, feel free to check it out. But ultimately, that's everything for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, I'd appreciate it if you click the like button and subscribe if you want more content. And also feel free to comment down below if you have any requests or suggestions for future videos. So yeah, that's everything. Have an incredible rest of your day, and I'll see you again soon.